At number 19 on the Iconic 100 list is the 1999 Charizard card from the Pokemon series. And here to teach us about this today, we've brought back Yamwax from Instagram. Corey, what do you think about where this card listed or came up? I'll tell you, I actually had this on my list. I had it number 6 on the all-time iconic list because I think this card represents the Pokemon brand and the Pokemon card series, and I think it's too low at 19 personally. What do you think?
I agree 100%. It's a top 10 card at this point. So great placement. I'd have it right there too. And so we're talking about a card that shows up number 1 regularly on the most graded cards list. Now that companies like PSA are showing how many cards are graded, Charizard eclipses Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and it's nuts, right? So this is a card that people love, and I think this current generation, as they're becoming adults, kids who had collected, they're loving it. And I collect with my son, and so it's been a great way to connect with him. But nothing gets him more excited than a set that has a Charizard, and he can pop it open and get a shiny Zard in any set that he pulls. But there's something special about this first set that opened up Pokemon to the United States.
In 1999 and 2000, I was working at my local card store. I worked there for about 7 years, and this was toward the beginning of that stage. And we brought in for the first time something that was non-sports. We'd always been sports cards, but the Pokemon craze was so big, we had to capitalize, and we devoted a whole showcase to it. And people were crazy for these Pokemon cards for a period of about 3 or 4 months. And one card by far was the card that people wanted most, and that was the Charizard. People weren't as concerned at that point about like first edition and stuff like that. People just wanted any opportunity to buy a Charizard. And so as Pokemon was going out in popularity, toward the end of that stage, we put together a bunch of grab bags, and in the grab bags we always had a single Charizard that was possible. And everybody who came in was like, give me 2 or give me 3 of those grab bags. And that's what helped us to move the end of our inventory, because even at the end, Charizard was the name. So he's been the name in Pokemon cards now, Corey, for 23 years. He's been the main character in Pokemon. Why is Charizard can you teach us a little bit? Why is he the character that everybody gravitates to in the cards?
I think initially it had something to do with it being one of the most powerful cards that you could play in the game, in the TCG. But beyond that, I mean, who doesn't love a giant fire-breathing dragon? There's just something cool about that, right? And you think that he's giant, but if you actually look at his stats on the cards, I believe it lists him at 5'7". So that brings the scale down a little bit, but not compared to how iconic the card is and how bad people want it. That's really interesting. But what's interesting about so chasing those first edition cards, as if you were looking for the first edition Charizard and you were hoping to find it in your Omaha or Minneapolis card shop, very, very low chance unless those had been shipped in straight from the coast, because the story lore goes that all those first edition boxes, those very first boxes that came off the presses in the United States from Wizards of the Coast, were along the coasts. So you had to buy them in Seattle, San Francisco, New York City. And there were collectors like King Pokemon, Gary Haas, who would go from shop to shop, buying up as much as he could, because he knew that there was going to be long-term demand for that first edition stamp. And I think that first edition stamp is like pinstripes on the Yankees. It just makes you do dumb things and pay way too much for some of these 1999 first edition cards. But it's great that there's a tier for everyone. And if you want to have just a great yellow border, first year 1999 Pokemon card, a Charizard card, you don't have to get the first edition. And for those collectors who kind of want the in-between, you've got the shadowless that doesn't have the stamp. And so there's just, fun chase options. But, 1999, it's important to remember that these came over from Japan. So there's earlier sets from 96, 97, 98 out of Japan as well. But this is the one that just made Pokemon huge worldwide when it landed here in the US.
Amazing teaching. So just to be clear, there are 3 versions. There's the first edition. There's the we're gonna call it non-first edition because it doesn't have a first edition stamp, that's shadowless, and then a non-first edition that is not shadowless, so shadowed or whatever. But is that it? Are those the only 3 variations?
Those are the three main variations. You'll
Okay.
have, people who will have, shades of gray in between, literally, meaning there's gray stamp first edition ones where they're looking for a stamp that was printed very lightly. There's different variations of the stamps. There's, of course, off prints, but they're all sort of outside of those core three. And that shadow, when we talk about shadowless, is just a slight shadow around the corner of the card there. So look that up. But yeah, generally there's those three options, and they get more and more rare, where I think in the first edition, there's like 121 PSA 10s, but in the standard non-shadowless version, there's over 600 PSA 10s.
Okay. As always, and Corey,
Hold on, I just glanced at it. I should repeat that.
Okay.
It's not that high. It's 449. Okay.
449 of the regulars. Okay.
Yeah. So, if you look at the graded population of the Charizard, there are 121 currently of the first edition card in PSA 10, but there are only 449 in the in the standard size card. So there's definitely a lot more rarity when it comes to the first edition.
Amazing detail. Thank you for teaching us a little bit about the Charizard card today. Again, I wish it would have been a little bit higher, but it comes in at number 19 on the Iconic 100 list. Tomorrow, I'll be back with another guest. Corey, I want to thank you for all the help you've given us on these videos so far. It's a pleasure to have you. We'll have card number 18 tomorrow. And until next time, happy collecting.